Welcome, amigo, to the land without end. The desert and death are the closest of friends. We sing of his courage, his magnificent song. But pay close attention, he won't be here long. As the birds block his eyes, the sun bleaches his bones. He is endless, it's scattered, watch him lose his cojones, aye, aye.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Slash Filmcast, the official podcast of SlashFilm.com. My name is David Chen, and with me are
Devindra Hardawaks.
And I'm Quigley.
Joining us later on is going to be the founder of the Alamo Drafthouse and of Alamo Drafthouse Films, Tim League, to help us review Rango. If you're just tuning in for the first time, you should know that the Slash Filmcast typically broadcasts live on Sunday nights at slashfilm.com/live. We begin by discussing what we've been watching, move on into a dissection of the week's film news, which you can find at slashfilm.com, and then conclude with one in-depth review. This week, as I already mentioned, we'll be reviewing Gore Verbinski's newest film, Rango. But before we get to any of that, guys, just one quick announcement. I want to give a big shout-out to Whitney Matheson over at The USA Today. Whitney Matheson writes the amazingly interesting Pop Candy blog and recently listed the Slash Filmcast as one of her top 10 film podcasts. I'd highly recommend this list because it has a lot of other stalwarts on there in the film podcasting world, including Film Spotting, of course, and another show that I really like called The Tobolowsky Files, which if you're listening to this and not listening to Tobolowsky Files, you should be at tobolowskyfiles.com. She also listed Creative Screenwriting Magazine, which is an interesting choice because A, that podcast is amazing and indispensable, and B, because Jeff Goldsmith announced this week that he would be leaving Creative Screenwriting Magazine after 9 years. So that's a huge change, and he's going to be doing it. I'm sorry, what, Devindra?
I didn't hear that.
Yeah. It's a huge shift in the online film podcasting world, in my opinion. I mean, this guy is legend, and I'll be very curious to see what he does next. He is doing another podcast and screening series, I think, and you can sign up for, well, just basically subscribe to Creative Screenwriting Podcast. You get instructions on how to keep up with what Jeff's doing. But I thought I'd give a shout-out both to Whitney, who has been doing Pop Candy for quite some time, and it's an amazing blog that you should check out, and also to Jeff Goldsmith from Creative Screenwriting Magazine because, it's people like Jeff Goldsmith that pave the way for podcasts like the Slash Filmcast. So, again, this is me sort of genuflecting or whatever the proper respectful gesture is towards those two giants. Anyway, let's move on, guys, into the show. What we've been watching this week. This week, I watched a movie called The Adjustment Bureau. This is a film directed by George Nolfi, starring Matt Damon and Emily Blunt. And I think it's based on a story by Philip K. Dick. And I really enjoyed this movie, guys. I mean, this is a unique film, a unique sci-fi premise. Do you guys know what the premise of the film is? Can any of you discern the premise from the commercials or the trailers?
Yeah, it seems like, there's this crazy group of guys who kind of controls everybody's fates, I guess.
Yeah.
And they wear bowler hats?
Not bowler hats, fedoras, Adam.
Oh, fedoras. Well, there's no bowler hat action in this movie?
Yeah. I don't think so.
No.
I think it's
and they also brought on John
that,
Slattery from Mad Men for some reason.
Yes. Well, that's like the perfect role for him.
Yes.
But the premise of the movie is that, yes, there are these people, there's this adjustment bureau that sends out these adjusters to kind of fix your life. Like, most of the time you go through life, everything is totally fine and goes according to your plan. And who determines the plan? The chairman, i.e. God. But, yeah, most of the time everything goes according to plan. Every now and then something goes off track, and the adjusters need to make an adjustment. And this happens to Matt Damon, and he accidentally meets Emily Blunt, but he wasn't supposed to, so the Adjustment Bureau says, hey, you're not supposed to be with her, and then he spends the entire movie kind of trying to circumvent their request or their directive. Now, I think this is...
And their hats.
Exactly. Well, actually, the hats, believe it or not, play a major role in the film. I'm not...
Oh, I believe it.
Okay. I'm being 100% serious. In fact...
I am too, because I read reviews.
Okay, yeah.
What?
Yeah, it's kind of ridiculous. And let me just say this. The premise of the movie is utterly ridiculous. Like, the idea that there are these guys walking around with hats... and the hats have special powers, and these guys can bend space and time, but they need to use doors to travel through the city. It does so much, like, there's so many plot holes you could drive a truck through. It doesn't really make much sense. But the movie does propose some really interesting ideas about free will and predestination and fate. And it reminds me of a story that a fellow blogger told me, and I don't have permission to tell this story, so I'm going to be as vague as possible. I was talking with a blogger who is extremely talented and who I read frequently, and he's a film blogger. And I asked him, this was in person, I asked him, we were talking about like dating, and I asked him how he met his wife, because he has a wife and kid. And he said that he was on a train one day, and the train kind of lurched forward, and he fell down in front of this woman. And he was reading a book at the time, and the woman made a comment on the book, which she had also read. And they ended up having a conversation, and they ended up actually just walking around the city for like 6 hours and just talking, and the rest is history. And that story by this blogger that he told me kind of blew my mind, because it's like, if any like tiny thing had been different that day, if the guy had 5 minutes trouble finding his keys and was 5 minutes late, if he had gotten into a different subway car that day, if he had brought a different book with him, his entire existence would be completely different. If like his kid right now wouldn't exist if he had brought a different book on the subway that day. Do you know what I mean? And that's just mind blowing to me that like such a small thing can change the entire course of your life. And The Adjustment Bureau is actually a movie that addresses issues like that. It tackles those things head on and asks the question, like, what happens if you make an irrevocable change to your life? What happens? Can you set it back to the way it was? Is it a futile gesture to try to do that? And even though, again, like I said, the movie is really silly, the premise is pretty ridiculous, the fact that it tries to tackle these questions makes it a unique film, makes it very interesting, and it may make it like sort of one of my, if not one of my favorite movies of the year, certainly one of the ones that I think is worth a look when we come to our end of 2011 best of year list. So I really enjoyed The Adjustment Bureau. I'd recommend it to anyone. It's not for everyone. I mean, as a religious person myself, I think I find it more interesting than a lot of other people who might not have any who might atheists who might not like even believe that there is broader forces at work, but I certainly found
broader
it to be,
hats at work.
Exactly, broader hats at work. But I certainly found it to be very thought provoking, and I hope you guys check it out, because it's it's very difficult for movies like this to get attention and to get funding, and we should be supporting movies that try to do something different, even if they don't completely succeed. George Nolfi, by the way, co-writer for The Bourne Ultimatum, and I think this is his directorial debut. So, again, another person who's very talented and who I think is worthy of our support. So, that's The Adjustment Bureau. And I just wanted to mention really quickly, I saw a movie that I saw in theaters a long time ago when it was playing in 2 theaters in the country. I actually went there with new/film.com writer Angie Han. We saw this movie together. It's called Just Another Love Story. It's directed by Ol Bornedal. I think I've definitely spoken about it on this podcast before, but it is on Netflix Watch Instantly, and it is a really neat noir film that's very stylish. And it's basically like a noir version of While You Were Sleeping. I'd highly recommend it. Again, Netflix Watch Instantly. The movie's Just Another Love Story. And it actually, despite being kind of cloaked in this thriller, like murder mystery thriller, it does kind of make some interesting points, or it has a really interesting depiction of middle age and the doldrums that can come from being married to someone for 10 years. If I ever get married to someone, I'm going to make my future wife watch this movie with me, I think. That's the conclusion I came to. So, Just Another Love Story. It's on Netflix Watch Instantly right now. Check it out. All right, that's what I've been watching this week. Devindra Hardawar, what have you been watching?
This week I saw The Devil, the new film by Ji-woon Kim. And guys, let me tell you, this movie is insane. It's pretty much, the revenge movie to end all revenge movies. This film is about a secret service, or just I think just like a plain secret agent, played by Byung-eun Lee, whose wife is murdered at the beginning of the film by this mass murderer played by Min-sik Choi. And the guy.
Let's pause for a moment.
Yes.
The guy who plays the Secret Service agent, he was he was a character in G.I. Joe, right? He was the bad ninja in G.I. Joe. He was the bad ninja in G.I. Joe: Rise of the Cobra. So that's how people would know him. And Min-sik Choi was Old Boy, I guess.
He was Odae-soo.
Odae-soo in the film Old Boy.
Yeah, and the last we saw Min-sik Choi, he was also playing like this crazy woman-hating character in Sympathy for Lady Vengeance.
Right.
So he took like a 5-year break, and now he's back. Another crazy role that I think it stretches even Sympathy for Lady Vengeance, like what he does there. It definitely one-ups that.
He was already a pretty unsympathetic character in Sympathy for Lady Vengeance.
Oh yeah, there was nothing for him there, basically.
And he's even more unsympathetic here, you're saying?
Yeah, here he's just pure evil. Like, this movie takes revenge movies completely to the extreme. Like, at the beginning, we see a quick setup between, the secret agent and his wife. Definitely loves her. She dies, pretty quickly, like, at the beginning of the film.
Yep.
And you see that in the trailer and everything. This film is really about this crazy game of cat and mouse between the secret agent and Min-sik Choi's character. And basically, every time they meet, the stakes get up and up. And it's just crazy. It's a really interesting exploration of revenge. I don't think it's as morally complex or as layered as like Sympathy for Lady Vengeance is, but it's definitely up there. I think it's actually more reminiscent of Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance, which was a pretty straightforward film when it came to revenge. Basically, if you tried to get revenge, it would eventually come around to bite you in the ass. This movie kind of has the same theme, but it's pumped up to like 11. It's just insane. So yeah, if you've seen the trailer and it hooked you, I think you'll definitely enjoy the hell out of this film. It's very long, but I think it definitely deserves it. This movie places, in a typical film, right? The main character will find the killer, towards the end of the film, and then maybe 10 minutes later the movie ends. Here, that's not the case. It's
like very early on. I've heard early on, like that confrontation takes place.
Yes.
And, yeah.
It's very, very different here, and I freaking loved it. I think this is probably the best film that Ji-Woon Kim has made. This guy did The Good, the Bad, and the Weird, which was a really fun Western, but he also did A Bittersweet Life, which I thought was an interesting gangster film, but it didn't really transcend the genre or anything.
Yeah, it was a solid entry in the gangster genre, and I think it's a really good movie that probably no one listening to this has seen, so I'd encourage people to seek it out because it's pretty cool.
Yeah, and he also did A Tale of Two Sisters, which was the horror film that really put him on the map.
Yep.
This guy's a real genre filmmaker, but I think with I Saw the Devil, he's finally like held up the genre, to the audience and definitely kind of twisted it on its head and has done something really interesting with it.
He has twisted it on its head.
Yes, exactly.
To mix a metaphor.
In this movie, literally,
yes.
For sure. And he's doing a movie with Liam Neeson next, like an ass-kicking movie with Liam Neeson. I cannot wait to see that.
Well, it sounds really awesome. I Saw the Devil is out by Magnet Releasing, I think, is a company who also did films such as, what do you call it?
The Dragon Tattoo series.
Yeah, the Dragon Tattoo, and then the Let the Right One In. That's what I'm trying to think of.
Yeah.
So they pick up foreign films that are really cool, genre foreign films, and release them in the United States. Not clear to me what the release strategy for this is, because I have desperately been trying to find tickets for this movie. It's in New York and LA right now, limited release. So Devindra's very lucky that he gets to see it. You said, Devindra, it's going to be coming to video on demand?
It is on their website. It's listed as coming on video on demand, so it should pop up there soon. And this is definitely something you kind of want to see in the theater if you can, just to be there with an audience as the shit hits the fan. It's such a fun movie. The weird thing is, like, it's definitely dramatic. It definitely gets very intense, and but it still manages to be funny and also to be a fun action movie, which is this weird balance. I'm not sure how he did it, but. Yeah, he definitely made something unique here.
Sounds very cool. The film is I Saw the Devil, and it will hopefully be out on video on demand soon. Adam Quigley, what have you been watching this week?
I saw Drive Angry, which I actually saw this a while ago, but then we did the Oscar show, and now the movie's already basically completely irrelevant. It's at like number 13 at the box office, and it made like $9 million total.
Oh, brutal. I think it's
so
Nicolas Cage.
No one cares about this movie.
Nicolas Cage's worst opening in many, many years. I think it opened worse than The Weatherman by Gore Verbinski.
Wait, so it opened worse than Season of the Witch?
I'm pretty sure.
Did people see Season of the Witch either?
Yeah, well, I think it certainly did better than that. In fact, while you're talking about the movie, I will find out. So tell us why, despite the fact that no one cares anymore and it's completely irrelevant and it's the last thing we want to talk about, you still put it on your list tonight.
Well, I'm obligated to talk about it because I saw it.
I see. All right.
I'm sorry. There's not a more exciting.
You're
reason.
upholding your obligation to discuss it. I understand this, and there's something honorable in that. Kind of.
Is there really?
Is there though?
Yeah, I don't know. I actually do think it is probably a fun rental. It's definitely not as exciting an exploitation film as you probably hoped for, because I was hoping for something that was just like ridiculously awful. Yeah. And I heard a critic refer to this as cage-exploitation, which personally, like, that's a genre like I want to see. I want cage-exploitation. That sounds amazing to me. This kind of lazy cage-exploitation, though, it's exactly kind of what you expect the movie to be, and nothing more. It doesn't try to even do anything. It doesn't even do it well. It's like very half-assed exploitation. It's like, oh, look, nudity, carnage. It's
William
really
Fichtner, yay!
Yeah, William Fichtner actually I think is the highlight of the film. Even though his character is equally as ridiculous as you expect it to be, he actually brings a pretty fun quality to the movie, and he at least looks like he's kind of trying. Whereas everything else about the movie, like the CGI, is just atrocious, and not in a good way. It doesn't like make the movie more fun. It's just ugly to look at. They have these shots with like bullets going past the camera, and it looks terrible. And it's like we've seen this shot in friggin' like Uwe Boll films, and it looks better in those. So I don't know. It has its moments. It has kind of some fun moments of over the top action. It's got Amber Heard, and she's always fun to look at. Well,
let me ask you. First of all, let's address the point that we just brought up, which is that I believe that this is Nicolas Cage's worst opening since The Weatherman, and that film opened in 2005 with $4.25 million. So. Money, like if you adjust for inflation, that might not even be the case. But this movie, I think, opened with $5 million or something like that, and Season of the Witch had $10 million in its opening.
Oh wow!
So yeah, it's
so that was the audience. They got their fill of Nicolas Cage, and then they passed on Drive Angry.
Yeah, I think that's.
I feel like they got to space out the Nicolas Cage movies more often. Like that's really your best solution.
Otherwise,
I think we need one a month at least.
Nicolas Cage overload is what you're risking.
Exactly.
I don't think there's such a thing, but I do think that this movie doesn't handle the Nicolas Cage tag as well as it should. Specifically, there's a scene in this movie that was already done in Shoot 'Em Up. There's this crazy like shootout during sex. And Shoot 'Em Up did it amazingly well. And this movie does it. It's just like it feels so poorly directed. That's like every sort of cool idea they had in concept is kind of ruined by the execution, which is a shame because I actually did like My Bloody Valentine 3D, and it's the same filmmaker behind that.
Well, let me ask you this, Adam, quickly. A lot of the advertising campaign hinged upon the idea that this was shot in 3D as opposed to upconverted. Do you think that the difference is evident?
In certain shots, I think some shots look pretty good in 3D. Other times, it seems like they didn't even really try. They didn't even know how it was going to turn out, and they just sort of whatever resulted is like, oh well, that's the 3D we're getting. So I definitely don't think they put as much effort into it as I actually think Patrick Lussier, the director, I think he actually probably did put more effort in My Bloody Valentine 3D, maybe because he wasn't used to the format. Because that movie actually I think had pretty consistently good 3D, and this movie it's like occasionally it's like, oh, that looks good, and then the rest is kind of just shoddy.
Yeah.
Well, Adam,
the weird thing about this movie though is that it's called Drive Angry. There is not enough driving, and Nicolas Cage is not nearly angry enough. So I feel robbed.
You can think of at least two things wrong with that title.
Exactly.
So both of you saw it. We're both disappointed by Drive Angry 3D. Sounds like
I had more fun watching Tron Legacy than this movie.
Oh
God, I wouldn't go that far.
That is pretty harsh.
I also like Tron Legacy, unlike you guys. So,
oh yeah, okay. Well then that starts to make sense. All right, Adam, quickly. So after you saw the wretchedness of Drive Angry, you were like, let's cleanse the palate with an awesome movie, right? What else do you see?
Well, when you put it like that, it makes me look like an idiot. I saw Weekend at Bernie's, which basically the only reason I watch this is because it's sort of culturally significant. I see this movie constantly mocked and parodied and referenced in tons of movies, and I feel like it's kind of the epitome of the wacky 80s comedy. It's like I should really watch this movie that everyone refers to because I know exactly what it is.
Oh, this is your first time watching it?
First time watching Weekend at Bernie's because like it never appealed to me before. It's like, oh, he's a dead guy. Ha 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 ha.
First of all, Adam, I just want to say it makes me and probably a lot of other Filmcast listeners incredibly depressed that you that you refer to this movie as something that's culturally relevant.
It really is though. It is. It has a prominent place in our culture.
Oh, I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying it's very depressing. Anyway, continue.
It's depressing to even acknowledge that.
Well, okay. To be fair, I think I saw Weekend at Bernie's 2 in theaters, to be honest with you, and this is like literally one of the first movies I ever saw in theaters. And
can you actually clarify something for me?
Yeah.
I heard that Weekend at Bernie's 2 has this voodoo curse that makes the corpse dance around.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, okay, because okay, let me tell you this. When I saw Weekend at Bernie's 2, I had not seen Weekend at Bernie's 1 yet. So
how'd you understand what was going on?
It was really difficult, I'll tell you that. And yes, the answer to that question is yes. I still remember the voodoo curse. So for me to see Weekend at Bernie's 1, which had no voodoo curse, it was really weird. I'm going to be honest. Anyway.
Yeah, it's kind of dismaying.
Yeah.
No, the main reason I'm bringing this movie up is because, I was only watching it so I could sort of say, like, oh, okay, I've seen Weekend at Bernie's. And I was kind of stunned by how unpleasant this movie is. Like, it's not...
Well, first of all, describe the plot for people who've never seen Weekend at Bernie's.
Two guys go on a weekend retreat with their boss after supposedly finding some really good work, and then it turns out that he was going to kill them for sort of finding he had some deals going on. And then he ends up getting killed himself. And then they find the body, and they try to pretend like it's still alive during that weekend.
Why do they try to pretend like it's still alive?
That's a good question. They never adequately explain why that seems like a good idea.
Okay.
I was continually bothered by that, and the movie is really fucked up. That's sort of my main takeaway. It's like, this is a fucked up movie. It's like, it's not funny. This is like a really dark, twisted movie about two guys who clearly are sociopaths, and they think that like this is acceptable in any way. It's kind of ridiculous. So yeah, you have these constant scenes where they're like using the body like a puppet, kind of moving it around and hoping people won't notice that he's actually dead. He's fucking dead. And people are so self-involved that no one notices. People like will actually go up to him and like, oh, hey, and just start talking to him, but they'll never once even look at him or acknowledge him. So it's a really depressing movie basically about like how just horrible society is.
Yeah, it's like American Psycho but it was actually from the 80s.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really fucked up movie. So if you're looking to get depressed, how films reflect society, then watch Weekend at Bernie's.
So was it worth it, Adam? Like, now that you feel culturally literate in Weekend at Bernie's, are you like, man, I'm really glad I watched that?
Well, I'm like saddened that this is supposed to be like the epitome of like the wacky 80s comedy. Because I was hoping for something like fun and wacky, and it was just ended up walking away from it just sort of hating myself.
Yeah. Well, that's a certain type of 80s comedy, let's be clear, because there are a ton of classics coming out of the 80s. You got Animal House, you've got Airplane, you've got, the teen-centered comedies. This is what was mainstream popular in the 80s.
Right.
And yes, it was terrible.
It's a high-concept, mainstream, wacky 80s comedy.
All right, well, that's Weekend at Bernie's. And Adam, did you watch this on Netflix, I assume?
I did.
All right, so check it out if you want to continue to be depressed about the plight of humanity. Let's move on. But before we do that, we got to thank our listeners this week who took the time and took the money to throw a little bit of cash our way and support what we do here at the Filmcast. A big thanks to Thomas Hume. Simon, Inception is one of the most overrated movies. Googler, I think. I don't know how to pronounce that. Gugeler from Germany. Isabel Gautheron from France. Amanda Rust from right here in Boston, Jamaica Plain. And Scotty Coppage from thecinemaniac.com, as well as Andreas Ebsen from Denmark. Thank you guys so much for donating to the Filmcast this week. Really appreciate it. And also a big thanks to Daniel Hassan, Derek Peterson, and Michael Hine for becoming new subscribers at the rate of $2 per month. We really appreciate your support, and you can always support what we do here at the /Filmcast by going to /filmcast.com and using the links on the left-hand side of the page to donate to our show and help us to keep doing what we're doing. So, again, thanks, guys. We really appreciate it. Let's move on into film news this week, guys. So, a couple of big news items to mention, and let's do one really quickly, and that is just to say that we think we have figured out what Quentin Tarantino's next film is going to be. According to Franco Nero, the one-time spaghetti western star, he said this earlier to Movie Player: "My next project will be a western, but not in Italy. Here it is hard work. The film will be called The Angel, the Bad, and the Wise, and is a tribute to Sergio Leone. It's a movie that contains humor, lots of action, but also a great plot. We have already been signed by a dozen people who will be part of the project. Among the filmmakers involved include Quentin Tarantino, Keith Carradine, Treat Williams, 15 people in all. Americans who want to do this movie, and so we're trying to produce it outside of Italy." Again, this is not an exact translation because it's it's a translation, so the quote might not be exact. But essentially, Jeremy Smith from Ain't It Cool News confirmed that this is going to be Quentin Tarantino's next film, and that Christoph Waltz is going to be involved as well. What's interesting to me about the fact that Quentin Tarantino is doing a Western next, and according to rumors, he might even be delivering the script within months from now. According to Deadline, a draft of the Western is done, and that compared to recent scripts like Inglourious Basterds and Kill Bill that took very long to crystallize, this one came together much quicker and just flowed out of him, according to Deadline. So, what's interesting to me is that so much of Quentin Tarantino's work has already been reappropriation of elements of westerns. For him to make a straight
Kill Bill Volume 2.
Yeah, Kill Bill Volume 2.
Bastards.
Exactly. Very good examples of how Tarantino has appropriated the elements of the works of Sergio Leone and so on. And so for him to make a straight western, like, I feel like the film universe will collapse in on itself and form a black hole. So self-referential will it become. What do you guys think of this news?
It's Tarantino. I'm excited.
Yeah.
Sure. I mean, I've liked the little bits of Western style that we've seen from him. Kill Bill Volume 1 is definitely like a straight sort of martial arts film, but Volume 2 is definitely a Western. And I think it'd be kind of awesome to see what he'd do with it. Hopefully it won't take him forever to get this done, like so many of his other projects.
And Inglourious Basterds definitely has spaghetti Western qualities to it.
Yeah.
Although Inglourious Basterds, like, he, I think, announced it and then actually did it like a year later. It was kind of incredible how quickly that came together. But it took a long time for him to get the script done, I believe.
And he also talked about that movie sort of for years, before he actually did it. So
so hopefully this doesn't become one of those things. And it's exciting to see him team up with Christoph Waltz again, who is an extremely good actor. But I feel like, to be honest with you, and Christoph Waltz won an Oscar for his role in Inglourious Basterds. I don't think we've seen him as good as that in anything else, if I'm not mistaken.
Maybe he needs Tarantino to bring it out of him.
Yeah, or certainly the Green Hornet did not do that. So very unfortunate.
He was fun in that movie, but yes, he wasn't up to par with what we expected after Inglourious Basterds.
So we'll keep up with that and the news that surrounds this new Quentin Tarantino film, and I'm sure we'll be following it in the months to come. This week, we learned about a possible prequel/sequel to Blade Runner. And Alcon Entertainment, the company behind films such as The Blind Side and The Book of Eli, basically acquired the rights to make a prequel or a sequel to Blade Runner, but not a remake of Blade Runner. Apparently, those are much more difficult to get. And a lot of people, including us, kind of were slightly inaccurate in reporting that Warner Brothers were the ones that acquired this. In fact, Alcon Entertainment is not owned by Warner Brothers. And to quote an interview from IO9, Alcon producer Andrew Kosove, Kosove, said the following: "Our relationship with Warner is very strong, runs back to the earliest years of the company. They're the distributor on all of our movies. First of all, we're paying for everything. But second of all, and this is a way of answering maybe partially the concerns of your fans, this may work or it may not work. We may make this movie, but in truth, it may never get made. But what I can tell you for certain today is that we will not go about this process in some sort of large group think, where 15 executives are going to sit around a table micromanaging the creative talent. Broderick and I will meet with writers and directors, and we'll figure out what direction we want to go and what story we believe in. And then they will have the artistic autonomy to go out and make a great movie. I think whatever success we've had at Alcom, whether it was helping Chris Nolan's career with Insomnia or working with the Hughes brothers on Book of Eli, that philosophy of believing in filmmakers, giving them some parameters, and then letting them do their jobs has served us very well. And it's how we'll approach this process. I don't know how better to answer the question than that. He also said, to be clear, we cannot remake Blade Runner. As a legal matter, we have not bought the remake rights. We have no interest in remaking it. We can only do prequels or sequels. But I think the methodology that Chris Nolan brought to Batman is precisely what we aspire to, whomever the filmmaker is, whether Ridley comes back and joins us or it's someone else. It's precisely what we aspire to with Blade Runner. That's the template for us. And Pie in the Sky, by the way, they are talking about how they would want Chris Nolan to maybe potentially direct something like this. But obviously... Chris Nolan has not expressed any interest in this, and he can do whatever the hell he wants after Inception and The Dark Knight. So, guys, Blade Runner, Devindra Hardawar, is this a world that you want to return to in a prequel or sequel form?
Yeah, it's a world, every time I see that film, it's a world I definitely want to see so much more of. But I'm definitely more down for some sort of sequel rather than a prequel. Like, they should leave Deckard pretty much out of it, I would hope, or at least have like vague references to him in like some sort of sequel. I think that would be best. Like, you could totally explore that world with new characters and get something else out of it.
Yeah, I would not want to see a Deckard prequel. I think that would be
like a young Deckard. I don't want any of that.
It would be pretty awful. Pretty awful. No. And again, I've read this piece I think once or twice on the Slash Filmcast before, and I don't mind reading it again. But what do you call it? Drew McWeeny from HitFix.com wrote a really wonderful piece in May of 2009 called Looking Back at 1999, Jar Jar Binks is 10 years old. And it's kind of about how fandom of certain properties ends up defeating itself. Let me read here from this piece. It's Pavlovian. You're watching some good science fiction movie you love, and they mention attack ships on the fire off the belt of Orion or some such thing. And you end up liking the movie a lot, so you end up watching the movie a lot because that's what geeks do. And by the 43rd time watching it, and half watching it, and watching it with friends and while talking, and wallpaper watching it, you hear that line again. You're older than the Zarkon battlefields, and you think in passing, man, I'd like to see the Zarkon battlefields. And then it becomes a thing, an itch you feel like you need to scratch. No, you don't. Storytelling, great fun pulp storytelling, is all about forward motion. Everything is always in motion. The entire idea of backing up to fill in the blanks is counterintuitive. So here's where I find myself now on this entire prequel, reboot, remake, update, reinvention thing. I am fatigued. And I kind of agree with Drew when he writes this about going back and filling in the blanks. And Patton Oswalt also did a really great bit on this, and I think we've mentioned that before as well. So that's my thought on the prequel. The world was really interesting. Adam Quigley, any thoughts on this? I have some more thoughts, but let me go check in with you.
I think it's exactly as stupid as you probably assume that all of us think this news is. I don't understand the motivation. It's not as though like some screenwriter presented this script and said, "Oh, I actually have a really good idea for a story to take place in the Blade Runner universe, and I think we should make this." And then they said, "Okay, this is the creative motivation behind it," because they're giving this whole speech about like artistic integrity, but there's no artistic integrity here. Like, it's not like when has this ever proven to be a good idea? It's not like the actual person behind Blade Runner, Ridley Scott. Well, actually, obviously he wasn't. He's behind the film world version of Blade Runner. It's not like he's coming back and saying that he wants to do a sequel and he wants these guys to make it. They're just, by their own means, deciding that this is a good idea because it has a following. So they can give any sort of speech about artistic integrity, but there clearly is none if you're just making a sequel or prequel to Blade Runner just because you can.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of truth in what you said, and it'll be interesting to see if they come forward with like a compelling script. But at the same time as Blade Runner seems so expansive and such this lived-in world, it also felt like a really self-contained story. You know, it didn't feel like it was itching for more stories, especially because a lot of people think that the story that was there. I mean, there's like 5 different cuts of that movie. You know, they barely were able to tell that story in a coherent way the first time around. So for them to want to plumb the depths, I don't know. It's be interesting to see what happens.
I think, I mean, there were so many cuts because the story itself was kind of, you know, it wasn't very Hollywood at the time. Maybe now that, you know, that sort of science fiction idea is a little more prevalent, maybe it would be more accepted. I mean, we got a mainstream, you know, film of iRobot, which was not very good, but it was, I thought it was at least a fun movie. So I think you could do something similar. But, you know, another argument is...
But no one would want that. No one would want the iRobot version of Blade Runner.
Exactly.
And also, like, we've seen, like, what an actual theatrical Hollywood version of Blade Runner looks like, and that's the version that's not watched anymore.
Yes, that's true. And you know, another argument is we've definitely seen so many movies influenced by Blade Runner, like The Fifth Element, that it almost seems like we've already been exploring this world.
You're talking about the one with the voiceover and the happy ending, right, Adam?
That is correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And you know, I almost feel like, again, because let's say spoilers for Blade Runner, we've discussed this in the past, but you know, the question of whether Deckard is a replicant or not. A lot of people think there's no way in hell that that's the case. And Ridley Scott has said, yeah, that's what I was thinking. So it's like, did Ridley Scott even know what he wanted? You know, that's one question. Did Ridley Scott even know what he was trying to say about humanity? I think that is a valid question to ask. Because a lot of people are like, the idea that Deckard is a replicant makes no sense. But I've watched the final cut of the movie, which is on the 5-disc like Blu-ray and HD DVD, and I think since we're talking about since I've already said spoilers for this movie, that ending is pretty cool. I gotta say, like the idea is that at the end of the movie, and please correct me if I'm wrong, guys, Deckard sees like Edward James Olmos has left like a origami horse, right? And throughout the whole movie, Deckard has been dreaming of horses, right? So seeing the horse is an indication to Deckard that A, Deckard is a replicant, and B, almost knows that he's a replicant, you know? And there's this kind of look on Deckard's face. He's like, sees the horse, realizes that stuff, nods, has this like knowing look on his face. Is like, okay, we got to get the hell out of here. And then he gets in the elevator and leaves, and that's the end of the movie. And I think that's a pretty cool ending. But a lot of people would say, like, well, you know, that doesn't really make much sense that they would send they would send a replicant who, like, with a whole history and all this stuff to kill other replicants, you know, like...
That sort of makes perfect sense, though. Like, if you're trying to kill these superhuman beings,
I guess
you send just a normal flesh and blood human.
I guess, but why not? Why do you need to make him think he's human, though? That's the question. Is like, why not just...
It's more practical.
Like, why not just give him knowledge of his replicant nature? There's no reason.
I think that was the whole point of building those types of replicants, because it's sort of this thing where, you know, it's all about humanity killing God, right?
Yeah, but it's like the whole thing of, like, you know, you see on like The Simpsons or Futurama, like a robot screaming like, "Why was I designed to feel pain?" And it's like, and it's the same thing. Like, why design a replicant who think he's human to go after other replicants? Why not just build him with the self-awareness that he is going to die, and he can have fulfillment and joy knowing that he's accomplishing his goal of taking out other replicants and then dying. You know, it's an interesting, like, this deserves more conversation.
I mean, the whole point, right, is that if he's human, he's not programmed, right? He has free will, and this brings to mind, you know, the Adjustment Bureau, Dave. Like, would you be more effective if you thought you had full control over your life rather than being a robot programmed to do it? That's the sort of question it asks. That's a good point. That's a good point. Now,
it's not like he was created specifically for this purpose, right? Like, he had existed before that.
It's really unclear.
It's unclear, yeah. But, well, you know, the point being, like, did Ridley Scott consider all this stuff when he was making the movie? And charitably, you could say yes. Ridley Scott definitely thought this through completely. Or one could also say, well, there's so many freaking plot holes that he couldn't have, and he just kind of threw this in at the end as kind of a Tim Burton Planet of the Apes-esque, you know, let's mess with the audience at the end kind of thing.
It's kind of the equivalent of the Inception ending. It's sort of that question of what if. It sort of leaves you with a symbol to have you question.
Right. Yeah, no, that's a really good point. I'm now that we're talking about this, I'm actually like getting excited about not the prequel or sequel, but just watching this movie again because I remember how good it is. But yeah, so it's certainly a question that's up for debate. Like, what are the thematic elements of Blade Runner that were actually there? Was Deckard a replicant? All this stuff. And for those reasons, it feels like a very self-contained story. Like, I don't know how a movie could really. Oh, I guess I kind of just answered the question when I said that. Like, if the movie did that poorly, in its current incarnation, could another movie do that better? I guess it's possible, but can you do it better than Ridley Scott? That's another question.
I would also hope, like, if they did another project, they would ask different questions, maybe.
Exactly. But anyway, let's move on, guys. Last bit of news this week. We learned that Screen Gems has bought the rights to the video game Devil May Cry, and that Kyle Ward is writing the screenplay. Now, I know you're thinking, who is Kyle Ward? He is the man behind the Kane and Lynch, I think, movie, right? So,
wasn't he also going to write the Uncharted film, but no longer?
I think that is correct, yes. So he's written the Kane and Lynch screenplay and also Devil May Cry screenplay, according to IMDb, although that looks really sketchily wrong. So, anyway, I have never played the Devil May Cry games. Can one of you explain what the premise is?
It's about being cool. It's
about being super
cool
awesome, jumping in the air, shooting guns,
so
having a sweet coat.
Yeah, it would be a movie full of like crazy, highly choreographed action and being awesome all the time. So I don't know. It could make for something interesting. If Neville Dean Taylor like decided to make a Devil May Cry movie, that would be awesome, I think. But who knows what it's going to end up being.
I don't think it would have the artistic choreography needed to really convey the Devil May Cry style.
Okay, I know you guys we're just joking around, but seriously, what is Devil May Cry about? You played Dante,
It is seriously
right?
about that. It's
yeah, it really is what it is. It's a wait. There actually is somewhat of a plot.
Yeah,
I always forget what the plot is because I'm so focused on the fact that it's this guy flipping around shooting stuff with guns.
So you play Dante, who is what, like son of
He's
the
like
devil
this
or something?
Super powered, yes.
Okay,
Clearly,
you guys. I mean, I guess the fact that you guys can't explain the plot to me easily.
The thing is, it's first of all, it's a Capcom like game series, so
it's a revenge thing, right? Isn't he trying to like get vengeance? Someone killed like his parents. Demons killed his parents or something.
Yes, and yeah, that sounds familiar.
Okay, all right. Well, anyway, I don't even know.
Demons. There's cool shit. And he has guns and a sword, so that's important. That is also.
The thing is, I don't remember the last good movie that Screen Gems has made. I don't understand why they continue to do these kind of religious movies, like religiously themed movies that are like barely I just don't understand. I don't understand the religious sort of subgenre of horror, thriller, action movies in general. Who goes to see movies like End of Days and Legion? I don't understand. I'm a religious person, and I have no interest in seeing them, and I'm a fan of action movies, and I have no interest in seeing them. So I don't know who keeps turning up for these things, but they are not stopping with this trend. Legion, there's this other movie with Paul Bettany, right, that I think that they're doing as well. Do you guys see the trailer for it?
Yeah, Priest.
Yeah, Priest, which looks about as good as Legion.
It's by the Legion director, so it's kind of funny. He may end up doing Devil May Cry. Who knows?
Yeah, I didn't even know
one
that.
guy just making these movies his whole life.
I didn't even know that. But anyway, so are any of you guys excited for the Devil May Cry movie? Like, were you fans of the game?
They're fun.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think what I like about Devil May Cry in the games can be translated to a movie because I like actually playing as Dante, hopping around, hyper active, hyper stylized.
You like juggling guys in the air with guns.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's
a hack and slash type game,
right.
So plot and all that crap doesn't really, it doesn't really come into play too much.
Right.
I also don't think, I don't know if this could be a great like American film, like with great choreography and everything. If this was a Japanese production, it ended up being kind of terrible, but I think it'd be more fun.
Well, we did get an Equilibrium with some nice gun kata in there, so
yeah, but that's like very rare.
That movie
very rare.
Also, that movie didn't do very well, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Did you guys like Equilibrium, by the way?
I
I
really
still
like
like it.
Equilibrium.
Yeah, that movie,
I mean,
like
it's-
you can tell that movie has no budget, like with those cars, but otherwise, there's still so much to like about it.
It's also like incredibly derivative of other sci-fi films,
Sure,
but
yeah.
still, it's Christian Bale being cool. I enjoy it.
Yeah, and the gun kata, I really dig it, and also it made a lot with very little. Like the
Yes.
movie was very low budget, but it made it look as high budget as it could, and there's some interesting composition in there. But I think our college roommate put it best, Devindra, when he said that Brian said that the recipe for disaster is have a drug that eliminates emotion from your entire population, and the best way to administer that drug is have them injected by themselves. I think there's no way that could go wrong. which is essentially the
This is so
plot of
true.
Equilibrium. Yeah.
Actually, good thing you bring up Equilibrium because Ultraviolet is pretty much exactly what a Devil May Cry movie would look like. So.
Oh, yeah. Well, there you go. People already have it, and you can see how good and bad it is. Anyway, guys, all right, let's move on into our review of Rango.
Here in the Mojave Desert, animals have had millions of years to adapt to the harsh environment. But the lizard? He's going to die.
What was that for?
You're a stranger. Strangers don't last long here.
That was the trailer for the newest film by Gore Verbinski, Rango, starring Johnny Depp and a bunch of other extremely talented actors. It was out in theaters this past Friday. This is the Slash Filmcast, the official podcast of SlashFilm.com, and this evening we're honored to be joined by Tim League. Tim League is the founder of the Alamo Drafthouse series of theaters. He's also the founder of Alamo Drafthouse Films, a new film distribution arm, which is single-handedly responsible for allowing U.S. audiences to watch and enjoy the film Four Lions. Tim League, thanks for joining us today on the Slash Filmcast.
No problem. My pleasure.
So, Tim, I guess we should start just by talking about Rango and sort of seeing what your thoughts are in general on this film. This is a really interesting movie because it's Gore Verbinski's first foray into an animated film, and it's also ILM's first full-length animated feature. So can these people all come together along with Johnny Depp and create a compelling Western animated film? What do you think, Tim?
Well, I just watched it last night, so it's fresh in my mind, and I loved it. Actually, I realize that there's some people out there that are having a little bit of difficulty, maybe saying that the story's not all that original, or maybe the emotion isn't quite there. But I really didn't care. I had a blast. I thought the visuals were staggeringly good, and it was just a whole lot of fun. So I'm a big fan.
Very cool, Tim. Well, I think a lot of our fellow critics and colleagues probably agree with that assessment. Devindra Hardawar, your thoughts on Rango?
Yeah, I also love this movie. I adored the hell out of it. Honestly, I was shocked that it was even made. You know, with all of its quirks, style, and dimension. This seems like the sort of movie that would be killed in some sort of early phase. So I'm glad Verbinski was able to make a very unique take on a Western. And it's also very clear to me, like, you can tell this is ILM's first animated film because there's a lot of care being taken in every frame of this film. They're definitely working extra hard to make sure this film looks amazing. And you can tell, like, this movie looks like a gorgeously hand-drawn 2D film, or 2D animated film. So, yeah, I just loving watching it, and the sound design. I also think there's some really interesting stuff going on there. This film sounded amazing. So yeah, loved pretty much everything about it.
The character designs in this film are pretty incredible, and I think Adam Quigley, I brought this up during How to Train Your Dragon, and I said something along the lines of, aside from the main characters, the character designs in that film were pretty uncreative, right? Like the townspeople, like they're virtually indistinguishable from one another, and kind of blah in their design. This movie completely blows up the notion that you can't have like interesting designed characters that don't speak an entire word during the entire course of the film. Every single character is designed so uniquely, and like the just the animation.
Some of them pretty grotesquely.
Yeah. And the animation and just like the textures, it just looks like you could reach out and just touch them.
You wouldn't want to either.
Exactly, because you'd hurt yourself. So a really bang up job, and yeah, it does to some extent. It feels like they were like really trying to prove themselves with this initial feature, and I think that's to the audience's benefit. Adam Quigley, your thoughts on Rango?
Yeah, I also absolutely adored it. It was interesting. Tim was bringing up the story, saying that it's not very original. What I think is kind of bizarre about this movie is that it's kind of a remake of Chinatown in a lot of ways.
Yes,
it's Chinatown for kids.
I saw it with my own eyes.
I don't know how that made it, but made it to the big screen. But I am grateful for it. I also I love how the movie is sort of an amalgamation of every sort of. It's very reverent towards basically all the westerns, all the old school westerns out there. Sergio Leone films. Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. I was also stunned to see. That.
I love that moment.
That's wonderful, but it's like this movie is clearly more for adults, I think, than kids. It's being presented for kids. And
although
yeah,
I saw it in an audience with a lot of kids, and it was really good that I was listening to the audience and listening to how they responded, and at the right times, the kids were loving it. So it struck a perfect balance of being great for adults and being great for kids, although a lot of the jokes went way above the kids' heads.
Yeah, there's a lot of really.
That's good to hear. That's good to hear. I guess kids are generally pretty easily impressed, so maybe they'll just they'll be able to appreciate the visual style of the film, the visual energy, while adults will actually be able to appreciate the movie itself.
Well, let's first of all, as someone who works in education, Adam, do not underestimate the intelligence of children. But that being said, you're right. There is a lot of colorful stuff going on in here, a lot of bright animation, and I can totally imagine that kids would just be fine being dazzled by that. I'm very curious. I would love to interview a bunch of kids and see to what extent they were engaged in the actual plot of the movie and how much they actually understood what was going on, because there's a lot of adult vocabulary used here, and I was kind of marveling at how they did not dumb this down at all, and that's kind of to the movie's benefit. And also, there are certain elements. I'm probably the one here that likes the movie the least. I still really had a great time at the movie, and I think anyone listening to this should go watch this movie because it's unique and so remarkable that this movie is even A, was made, and B, is receiving a wide release, and C, is in 2D. And it's sad that I need to say that the fact that it's in 2D is a good thing, because you really get to see and enjoy the colorful palette that this movie
I like
employs.
this new technology, Dave. It definitely lets you see more of the film without those damn glasses.
Right?
Dude,
yeah,
I feel like
it's
more
very
movies
interesting.
should do this.
Yeah, I think so as well. It's very it's
pretty revolutionary.
Very ballsy move to go 2D on this animated film, but. So I think you should see this movie because it exists. This is one of those movies you should see because it exists. And, if there's anything you take away from my discussion of it, just take away that. That being said, the first half of the movie was pretty rough for me. I didn't find any of the stuff that Rango did, like the play acting stuff he did in his little glass cage, very amusing. And there wasn't really a character for me going on in Rango for the first third or the first half of the film. He's basically
Isn't that kind of the point, though?
I mean, I guess he's basically like a lizard version of like C-3PO, where he's like going around like messing things up and then accidentally he's like a buffoonish character messing things up and accidentally doing some good things. Like imagine a movie that is the main character is C-3PO. Like that's what the first half of the movie was for me, and so therefore it's pretty uninteresting and kind of like the movie almost lost me. But then about like a third or halfway through the movie, there's this spectacular action scene It's very lengthy, where people are chasing after. I'm not going to say what it is, but there's this huge thing that they're chasing after, and that's when I was like, wow, I was just dazzled and engaged by how this was done, and not only like the action itself, but the kind of framing of the action scene, how it was set up and staged, and the dialogue that comes after was very clever, and that's when the movie kind of won me back, and I stayed with it all the way through the end of it. So the first half was kind of weak for me, but then starting a third halfway through, I really kind of enjoyed this movie, and it's very again, like I said, unique. You won't see any other movie like this in theaters this year. I can guarantee you that. And I would recommend people go see Rango. So that's kind of my overall thoughts on that. I mean, what do you guys make of any of those things I said about the first half? Did you guys thoroughly enjoy the first half of the movie?
I'm not going to try to argue that the film is like a heavily character-driven movie. I definitely think it's pretty reliant on sort of just slapstick shtick. That is kind of what the film. It's more about having fun. But from a character standpoint, I do think like what you're bringing up is sort of what the movie's about. Like Rango as a character, he's been sort of just isolated, and he doesn't even know who he is. He doesn't have a name
at the beginning of the film.
Right.
I think that's important.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, and it's like sort of throughout the film, he's deciding who he wants to be, and he realizes he can be anybody.
Yeah, it's a journey of self-discovery, which is so. It's funny, Dave, that you bring up that the earlier parts didn't excite you as much. I don't know.
Yeah,
I loved actually the opening when you see him within the container, and then that slowly expands out and shows you the outside world around him.
What was the name of his fish, Mr.
Timms?
That was great.
And then when he's hallucinating and he sees like the giant Mr. Timms, I loved all of it. Visually, the movie is just gorgeous.
Visually very interesting, but honestly, that reminded me of that sequence in Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End, when Johnny Depp is like in heaven or like in the afterlife or Davy Jones' locker, which I found like again interesting to look at, but it just was a little bit too weird for me.
I think it was more effective here, though. Like in that film, in Pirates, right? It was more you had these mini, Jack Sparrows running around. It was all white. Here, it kind of says something about the character,
right?
And I actually think, Dave, like if you went back and watched this film, I would say it's very character centric because the film is entirely about Rango, like not knowing what he wants to do for this journey of self discovery. I actually think it it attempts at this very interesting sort of search for meaning that definitely most kids' films don't. And that makes up the entire first half of the movie. So if you don't latch onto that, then
I don't know. I do think David actually does have a point because Rango as a character, he doesn't even seem to really know what he's doing most of the time.
Exactly.
He's just kind of doing stuff. But it's not like it's not like there seems to be some sort of underlying like attempt to figure out who he is. It's sort of like he inadvertently by the end there's actually an emotional moment and he happens to learn who he is and who he wants to be, which I actually thought was an effective emotional beat. But I think most of the film is just kind of him like hilariously screwing shit up. Yeah,
I think that's a very accurate description of the film. Let me ask you this, Tim League.
Mm-hmm.
Johnny Depp, obviously a chameleon-like actor, so it's interesting that he plays a quasi-chameleon in this one. What did you think of his performance in Rango?
Well, that's difficult because I think he was incredibly entertaining all the way through, but it does feel like he's just doing his shtick for the most part.
But really, when has he played a character like this though? I want to be careful with how.
I think he's playing a shtick through Jack Sparrow as well. It's almost like it's a fairly consistent, one-dimensional, if you will, performance through the whole thing.
Yeah.
But I do agree, though, that there's a moment, where his world sort of starts to crumble around him, towards the, end of the second act. That's where the character really does gel, and you do get this little emotional burst. But all looking back on the whole performance, it's not an actorly performance. It's more of a hammy comedy shtick performance. But that said, it's great. I was thoroughly entertained. So
Depp, he's good at shtick, but he does do it a lot. Like it's kind of like every time, even though this is like shtick in a way that's different than what you've seen from him before, it's like every time you watch Depp do his shtick, it still sort of feels derivative of what you've seen before. Alice in Wonderland obviously was very different than anything we've seen from him. Jack Sparrow is obviously very different than anything we've seen from him. Willy Wonka, still different than everything we've seen from him. But all of it seems just based on the fact that we see it so regularly that it's just like, we get it. You're weird.
He is so different that his difference has become a sort of stultifying sameness.
Exactly.
Fear and Loathing to me was a very shtick performance too, where I couldn't get quite beyond the delivery of the performance to have anything beyond that. But I'm not really throwing stones. Maybe I'm throwing a pebble at him, but I don't think that's the intent of this movie. This movie is raw popcorn, and it's also very it wears its references on its sleeve. You were talking about a couple of them, but it's loaded down with all sorts of references to I guess what Gore Verbinski and the screenwriters really love. But
Star Wars, for one.
Yeah.
I mean, the references are so varied and diverse. You have a reference, for in that action scene that I referred to, for example, there's the Ride of the Valkyries reference, which I think is, Apocalypse Now, potentially, with the bombings and everything. Yeah. And also, the score has hints of Raising Arizona's score.
Oh, yes, yeah.
So it's kind of like all this different thing, like just all of this hodgepodge, but I think it works. And Hans Zimmer, by the way, I would never have guessed that he wrote the score to this movie. So another one where he kind of does a really amazing job at just taking on the characteristics of the films that he's trying to.
Raising Arizona meets Ennio Morricone.
Yeah,
so.
That's exactly what this is. And it's a really solid job by Mr. Zimmer. I did want to point out that one of the things, first of all, The Tourist. Have any of you seen it?
No.
Okay, because I would argue that movie has Johnny Depp, like, physically, his physical appearance is probably the closest to Johnny Depp in reality, if there is such a thing, that has appeared in a movie for many, many years. Right? Is that fair to say? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, what I mean to say is that the character that Johnny Depp plays in that movie most closely resembles Johnny Depp in real life, as opposed to any of the other films that he's been in, including all those movies you just listed, Adam.
Well, because he doesn't have scissor hands or crazy hats.
Right. That being said, it is interesting how much more life Johnny Depp brings to an animated character like Rango than he did to his own performance as basically almost himself in The Tourist. The contrast is extremely stark, and if you've seen The Tourist and you see this movie, you will just be grateful. It's unrecognizable, and I say that in a good way. The other thing I wanted to bring up was about the world building, which is really what I found was really bizarre and in some ways off-putting about the first half of this movie. I think I spent the first half of this movie trying to figure out what the hell was going on, and then I spent the second half of the movie just like going with it. But let me just give you an example. Like when you watch a movie like, let's say, Toy Story 3, okay? Pixar have created these like worlds that go with their movies that are really convincing. In Toy Story 3, it's like you're in this world of toys, and all these little things make sense. They use like an Etch-a-Sketch to plan out a heist. They use the TV to get information about stuff. They use like the adding machine, the speak and spell to like add and do math and stuff like that. So there's all this clever usage of real world items. And in this movie, right, it kind of like makes hints towards that. Like there's a Pepto-Bismol outhouse, and like tin cans are occasionally used. But then like the characters wear clothes and have little guns.
Yeah,
and
this is, I think, an example where your brain may be not helping you.
I think that's correct.
Just turn it off.
You know what I'm saying, though, right? Like just that there's no
make sense. Why do they have tiny guns?
Yeah, why do they have tiny guns?
I think. You're like basically like almost like attacking this movie for not being like other animated films.
I'm not attacking this movie. I'm just saying that was.
I mean, the irreverent style of the movie is like one of the things I love so much about it, because we're sort of at a point now where you kind of know what you're getting with like every animated film you go to see. With DreamWorks, they have a very particular style that you get with like Monsters vs. Aliens and stuff. And I don't know, it's kind of ugly to look at. Megamind had that same style. How to Train Your Dragon, I think, is like an exception, and that's actually why that film stands out as being so amazing. And then even with Pixar, though, who are again like great, I love Pixar, but they bring a certain sensibility that is very distinctly Pixar. And now even like the sort of the new contenders like Illumination, who did Despicable Me, it's like seeing the trailer for Hop, it's like I already know exactly like what I'm getting from them.
Yeah.
Rango feels so uniquely its own and so unlike what we're getting in other animated films right now that I found that incredibly refreshing. And I'm hoping to see the studio actually like put out more stuff to see. I really like sort of the hyper, like it has a realism to it, and yet it's like hyper stylized in other ways. And I love that sort of combination between those two styles, and I think it looks just astounding.
Yeah, you guys were talking about the character designs. Like, I think it's sort of amazing that these characters look ugly. Like Rango, if you look at it, that is an ugly main character.
He's hideous.
It's terrifying.
And within the first 5 minutes, you see him like shedding his skin, and it's just like, ugh.
I couldn't stop looking at his nostrils. Maybe I was sitting too close to the screen, but even the flaring of his nostrils was really intense and interesting.
For me, it was the eyes. Like I was like, how do those things work? Like it's like an eye that's wrapped around with like scaly stuff. Like what's going on there?
But I think like the studio Island should definitely be. We should give them kudos for like sticking with these sorts of designs. Like I don't normally buy movie toys, but I really want a Rango figurine.
I would be okay with that too, and that sort of alludes to an entire mentality of not dumbing this down, completely disregarding the idea. I mean, they did make the movie very colorful, but it seemed like there was no attempt at making this a movie that would appeal to kids.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. There's some occasional toilet humor, which I think the kids will appreciate.
That's true.
But it's still like it's actually like rooted in actual humor, not strictly like fart sounds just for the sake of fart sounds.
It just when I was watching it, it felt to me like they were not consciously catering to children, and I think that's a good thing.
Yeah. And the script has some amazing stuff in there. If you sit back and think about it, when Rango's talking about him and the snake and how they're related. Oh yeah, my mom had a very active social life or something. It's like, huh? Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Some nice body humor in there as well. So. Well, very cool, guys. It sounds like we all really enjoyed the movie and would recommend it to others. Tim Lee,
since we mentioned the snake, I just want to bring up that design. I thought was amazing.
Yes, yeah,
that was pretty amazing. Although, like, he was like an ethnically ambiguous snake. Like, it was played by Bill Nighy, but I had no idea what accent it was.
Dave, turn off your brain.
Oh my god! Are you serious?
I'm not complaining. I was just trying to figure out. I was like, what is he? This is like the Ariana Huffington of snakes. It's like I have no idea.
Like, these things you're mentioning definitely. I feel like somehow removed enjoyment of the film. It's just. I could see the disconnect happening, Dave.
Yes, I think that's very true. But
there's a logical flaw with the machine gun tail.
Exactly. I mean, what?
How does it rattle?
What is up with that, right, guys?
It was pretty awesome, though.
I did want to point out that something that I really liked about this movie is the fact that I could not, and this is a good thing, I could not figure out who was playing, who? Like, I had no idea who any of the actors were in this movie.
Because Stephen Root is so damn recognizable.
I immediately recognized Timothy Oliphant basically playing Clint Eastwood.
Oh, of course. Yeah. That is true. That is true. And
which also awesome. Like, what? I can't think of any movie that would actually have a scene like that. Especially a kid's movie.
It's cool.
What was he doing? I don't really understand, and I don't want to know, actually.
But it was cool to see Raylan Givens in this film, and also all the other characters. I think Ned Beatty does a really effective job as the tortoise character, as it were. And but what's most impressive is the characters aren't obviously playing the actors that they are, or at least they chose actors that wouldn't be immediately recognizable, and I think that's to the benefit. If you avoid the DreamWorks way of stunt casting it with a bunch of well-recognized celebrities, you end up with, as the audience member, you're not thinking, that's Ellen DeGeneres playing that fish, and I think that's a credit to the film. So, any other thoughts on this movie before we close out our review today? Tim Lee?
I thought the setup, guys, like, we haven't talked about this, but this movie opens with Rango in an aquarium tub, with human owners, and then he flies out. But we never hear about the human owners again.
Yes.
And that's awesome.
That is pretty cool. That is
they don't
pretty cool.
matter. You know, this is a movie about the animals, and I really get that about
Yeah,
it.
you just never hear of it. Like, for literally maybe 20 seconds, I was like, oh my gosh, those humans will be like, when they get home, they'll be like, oh my gosh, what happened to our, pet lizard?
Yeah.
And then I felt for them. My heart went
It's
out
like
to them.
an anti-Pixar sentiment, right? The
Yeah.
Pixar movie would be the lizard fighting tooth and nail to get back to its beloved owner,
Yes,
or something.
yes.
This one, it's like the owner's like, well, fuck that thing.
Yeah, exactly. Tim League, I was going to ask you any closing thoughts on Rango?
Well, I don't know. Are you guys fans of Mouse Hunt?
I am actually.
Yeah.
I've been a closet fan of Mouse Hunt for a while, but it almost feels like this somehow validifies my love of that movie. I never really talk about Mouse Hunt, but I think
is validify a word? If
I don't
so,
know. Well, you get the drift anyway. So,
nice. I'm going to use that from now on.
I just I think that sowed the seeds of what Gore Verbinski was eventually going to do with this film. I think it had the same kind of manic energy and just I don't know, entertainment value. So I'm glad to see him get back to possibly where he started.
Yeah,
I actually wholeheartedly agree with that. In terms of just like the style of comedy, the timing of the comedy with Rango, it has that perfectly slapstick sensibility that feels very old school, and it's really weird sort of seeing that brought to like a modern animated film.
I think those are all good points to end on, guys. Rango is a unique creation and one that is. Its appearance in movies, theaters today, I think, can only be explained by the fact that the Pirates of the Caribbean series made $1 billion for Disney, and Gore Verbinski was kind of, despite the relative crappiness of those movies, was someone who could do anything he wanted to do. So it's cool that, like Danny Boyle, he chose to take that ability and create something that we wouldn't have seen otherwise. And so Rango, certainly a film that deserves your attention if you're listening to the Slash Filmcast. So I think that's going to bring us to the end of this episode of the Slash Filmcast. Music for our show is probably going to come courtesy of the Rango soundtrack. And let's talk about where we can find more of your work this week. Oh, actually, before we say that, let me just say also, you can find every episode of the Slash Filmcast at slashfilmcast.com. And please email us. Let us know what you think of the show or of Rango at slashfilmcast@gmail.com. So, Tim League, you're here to kind of talk about one of the cool things that Alamo is doing at South by Southwest. Isn't that correct?
That is correct.
So tell us about this.
Well, in the fall, I program Fantastic Fest, which is the largest genre film festival in the United States. And we're now sitting 6 months away from it, which puts me directly in the off-season. So what I like to do in the off-season is I program a small sidebar, sort of a sampler of what you would find at Fantastic Fest. And it's part of the midnight section at South by Southwest Film Festival.
Well, let's give people an idea of what movies play at Fantastic Fest for those who have never heard of it before, just out of curiosity.
Well, it's horror, science fiction, fantasy, and really anything that we find that will make an audience either incredibly uncomfortable or confound them entirely. So just sort of odd, bizarre movies from all across the world.
So like this year, what were some of the highlights from this year's Fantastic Fest? I mean, I just so for the record, I am obviously very familiar with it. I just trying to give our listeners a taste of what it is.
So this year, well, we do a lot of big stuff as well as small stuff. We had a tribute to Roger Corman this year. We also brought in Yen Wu Ping for a Lifetime Achievement Award.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
choreographer of films such as The Matrix and countless other Asian films.
And then we also scour a lot of small independent Asian films. In particular, we have an Asian programmer that brings in a lot of oddball things. And we have for whatever reason, we've developed a pretty strong network with independent Spanish filmmakers. We had the world premiere of Nacho Vigalando's Time Crimes years ago. We had a new film by one of his partners in crime, Eugenio Mira, which I don't know, hasn't really been picked up yet, but maybe not. We did an event with Buried, and this is something where we get to showcase some of our old school ballyhoo. We buried, obviously the movie that came out in theaters around that same time, but we actually buried 5 members of the audience underground to watch the ultimate buried experience. all for just the chance to shake hands with Ryan Reynolds. So it was 5 sort of teenage girls who got to watch Buried while being 5 foot underground.
Was it worth it?
For them, I'm actually a pretty big fan of the movie Buried, so I don't know if I would watch it in those circumstances. But
they emerged scarred for life, and they were in no condition to meet Ryan Reynolds after that.
Yeah.
No, I don't. I really enjoyed the movie as well. So, but yeah, those are pretty. Could be rough conditions. So yeah, this year, where can people find the movies at South by Fantastic this year?
You can either go to the South by Southwest website, which is just sxsw.com, or we've also got them on the homepage of Fantastic Fest, which is fantasticfest.com. And so the movies this year range from we have a horror movie from Argentina, we have a Argentinian animated hedgehog film, and then we have perhaps one of the more bizarre films that we've ever shown, which was it's a pet project by the cinematographer from Crank 2 that he's been working on for the last 5 years with his brother.
And what's that movie called?
It's called The FP, and it's kind of hard to explain. It's an alternate reality, post-apocalyptic world where major civic decisions are decided based on Dance Dance Revolution battles. And for
Sold.
for some reason, everybody speaks in 80s hip hop slang. I'm not really sure if I can do it justice, but it's pretty phenomenal.
Very cool. Well, those all sound really interesting. I watched the trailer for Little Deaths today, and it kind of messed me up. I'm not going to lie. That trailer, pretty troubling stuff. So I think it's doing its job. Again, South by Fantastic, you can find this at fantasticfest.com/southbyfantastic, right? Is that the site? Or
it's close enough. Just go to southbysouthwest.com, and it's pretty easy to navigate, or fantasticfest.com. They both take you there.
Okay, cool. Very cool. And Tim, maybe you'll stick around for a few minutes. We can talk about Four Lions and a couple of things about film distribution, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure. That sounds great.
Cool. All right, well, let's wrap this episode up. Devindra Hardar, where can you find more of your work on the internet this week?
You can find me on Twitter at twitter.com/Devindra. All my tech writing is at venturebeat.com, and everything else I do is at devindra.org.
Adam Quigley?
You can find me writing for slashfilm.com, or you can follow me on Twitter at twitter.com/alwayswatching.
And you can find me at twitter.com/Dave Chensky. That's Dave Chen, SKY. You can find me at davechen.net. You can also find me at tobolowskifiles.com. I have a new podcast at davechen.net. You can find it there. It's called The Chencast. It's pretty interesting stuff. And Stephen Tobolowsky released a new Kindle story. You can find it in the Kindle store. Just go to stephentobolowsky.com to pick that up and help support what we do there. So that's a lot of stuff, but hopefully you guys can handle it. Anyway, guys, tune in next week. We'll be reviewing Battle Los Angeles, or Battle LA, I guess. I'm really looking forward to this movie and looking forward to see whether it can deliver the type of summer blockbuster film we expect in the middle of March.
Yeah, or at least better than the last time LA was destroyed in Skyline. So.
Oh, my God. Don't even remind me. So that's going to bring us to the end of this week's episode of the Filmcast. Again, a big thanks to Tim League for joining us this week. We're honored, Tim, and thanks for joining us. We'll stick around for the After Dark and talk more about that stuff. And again, thank you guys for listening to the official podcast of slashfilm.com. We're out.